Hello, I'm Mike Kowalski. I'm doing a class on building your watercolor confidence, and I'm doing a little demonstration here, show you my working process. I hope you enjoy it and sign up for the class. So I've got a drawing here on some unstretched 300-pound rough paper, and the first thing I'm going to do here is put in some darks, fairly thick as you can see from those brush strokes. Combination of raw sienna, little raw umber, cobalt blue, a little viridian maybe. It helps me define dark areas, a little bit of shadow, and also helps me think about where things are in the painting so I don't forget what I'm covering with the color. You'll see what happens to them when I wash over it. The sky wash I'm putting in is some warm and cool mixture of yellow ochre, cobalt blue, a little bit of quinacridone and rose over dry paper, leaving some white areas for clouds. I'm washing right over that sail, all the way down into the foreground and middle ground with washes here, right over those dark bits. You can see they're bleeding a bit. Adding some warm color up there on that shoreline. Dropping some darker blue tones, sky tones into that foreground water a little bit. I'm going to go back and soften up some of those white clouds a little bit, and then add some punchy pure cobalt blue in there. A little bit of color up in that sky. Looks nice and fresh. Dropping more of that into the foreground water, and I'm pulling out some of those boat shapes on the right with a slightly damp brush. I do it a lot, you'll see, during the painting, just to lift a little bit of that tone off. Starting to put in the middle ground shore with a muted color, which is yellow ochre and cobalt blue mixture. I don't want it to be real punchy green back there. Painting around the boats and clutter back there on the shore. Give you an idea that there's something there. I'll do the same in the foreground as well, painting around these shapes, which to me is so much better than putting a masking fluid on the shapes. You keep the shapes looking much more organic and painterly. So I'm having a richer color, same yellow ochre and cobalt blue, heavier pigment load in there, a little umber maybe, washing it in there. Some areas a little bit weaker, warmer, darker. So I'll add some darks back in there, but I don't want to mess around with it too much. I want it to stay fresh and lively. You don't want to fiddle too much. Scraping into some areas that you can't see off the bottom with a credit card. A couple of grass shapes. I like scraping the credit card a little bit here and there. So starting to pull those boats apart with color and value. Adding the side of that rowboat there. A couple more darks under that canoe. That little bit bothered me there. Just scrub it out. Background, sand dune. I'm mixing a raw sienna, a little bit of cobalt in there. Maybe a bit of rose. Those three colors I use a lot. And softening where it meets the sail. I don't want a knife edge line there. Keep things really soft. Dropping in a violet gray shadow where the clouds might be hitting those sand dunes, and softening that ridge line a bit. So again, softening where that sail is. I'll be painting that sail over the background there. Painting in that line where the hole meets the water. Checking that moisture level of my paper with the palm of my hand. Dropping in a steely gray there for the catamaran. And a umber or olive for the reflection. Bring it right down and using some squiggly brush strokes. Make it look like water. Nothing fancy. Pull out that area where the shore is going to be over the reflection. Again, soft edge there. I can work over that soft edge. Just a little bit of detail in the water. I don't need much. In the foreground, out of view, are some little wavy shapes. Some more darks there, and shadows in that boat really define that shape as a boat. Really helps to break down those simplest shapes to show the character of what you're painting. A few more darks in that tree. Again, the darks are not really dark back there. It's having all my rich darks to the foreground. Put a little yellow ochre in a boat. Nice warmth to draw your eyes back there. Some viridian and umber in the canoe, and I'm pulling out the bottom of this hole, give it more three-dimensional shape so it doesn't look like a flat thing back there, and a little bit of burnt sienna as opposed to using cadmium red back there. Burnt sienna is a good choice for a red. Similar colors in the back, washed back a little bit more so they don't pop as much. A few more darks in the foreground. Again, checking that moisture with the heel of my hand and dropping in a nice raw sienna sail. It might be grayed a little bit, softening it up. Dark against light sky, and then that middle ground shore is defining the edge of the sail down low. A few figures that look like they're sailing the boat. It's important to do figures that look like they're doing what they're meant to be doing and not just standing around. And we'll work on figures during the class, adding more warmth into that reflection. I'm doing the mast of the boats. Normally I pulled the mast up with a brush, but I couldn't do that with the constraints to do in the video. But in the future classes we'll see that. Put some more darks in there to define those boats. We're getting close to being done here. Some background foliage on the sand dunes. A grayed olive, dropping in more ultramarine where there's some shadow. Just a little bit of playful color stroke, give it some definition in the back, and pulling out that sail a bit against that background hill. And mixing up the foreground wash, which is cobalt, little umber, raw sienna. There'll be a mix of warm and cool in that. Scraping it here and there, again out of the picture, indicate, shells or cockles or something like that. Just a little bit of detail. And put a background brush stroke in there for water. And that'll pretty much do it. So I hope you can join the class. You'll definitely learn something. Workshop will do a variety of subject matter and keep things loose and lively. Thanks for stopping by.